currently showed at 3 dimensions away from more Fatal Attraction ripoffs being made. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're talking about Obsessed from 2009. Obsessed was a movie that was made by Steve Shields, I believe his name is, and it stars Beyonce, Idris Elba, who was an up-and-coming actor at the time, and Ali Lautner. And the movie is basically, like I said at the beginning, a ripoff of Fatal Attraction, only this time, I believe, it is actually it is more of a watered-down Fatal Attraction version of this movie, if I had to say, because basically, the movie itself has, it's not really, there's no nudity, really, and the sex is really, there's not really even any sex, I would say, because it's more or less like like I said, PG-13 watered-down version. And so, basically, this movie is, if you want to watch a Fatal Attraction movie, but you don't want, like watered down, which we've seen the story all the time, like a obsessed woman who's chasing after a married man, and most of the time, I will say, in the movie, though, the man usually does commit adultery, and then the woman comes obsessed with him and stalks him. This one is actually the opposite, and I will say this one actually has something over most movies, even a Fatal Attraction is. This one, which, okay, I will say this. The movie, stars Idris Elba, Beyonce, and Ali Lautner. Idris Elba, even though Beyonce is like the cover of all the movie and the trailers and everything, this movie actually is more or less like Beyonce's movie. Like, I would say, like, she's more of a supporting character in this movie. Like, I would say her and Jerry O'Connell, who is also in this movie, have basically this. Maybe she has a little bit more screen time, but mostly the same amount as he does. It's mostly Idris Elba and Ali Lautner's story. Like, he's the star, she's the co-star, Beyonce's the third wheel in this movie story, because she's barely in this movie. Like, if you want to watch the movie, if you're expecting Beyonce to be in it from shot one all the way to the end shot, you're going to be very disappointed, because this is not her movie. Now, I saw this movie, here's a fun fact about this movie. I saw this movie back in 2009 or 10, when the movie was at my local video store. Rest in peace, Bond's Video. So, I went to Bond's Video to rent this movie, okay? I was going to rent, actually, Highlander 2 and Highlander 3 on VHS, and so I picked those up, and as I was walking, because I said, the more expensive movie, I was with my parents, and we went to most of the more expensive movies were on the front, and we couldn't rent those because we were trying to be cheap. And so, basically, we were allowed to rent, like, older movies, and they were in the back, and so Highlander 2 and Highlander 3 were in the back, and I wanted to rent those because I loved Highlander, and I'd never seen Highlander 2 and 3. Little did I know they were shit. So basically, I rented those, and I come across this movie, and I'm like, hey, Obsessed. I wanted to watch that because I saw it on Reel's channel, and they had this thing on Reel's channel called Trailer Park Movies, where they would show trailers from new movies to attract people. And I saw that, and I'm like, ooh, I want to rent that. And so, of course, I watched the trailer, and I wanted to see the movie in theaters, so I didn't. So then, of course, I watched the trailer, liked it, and then, of course, I saw the movie on the video store, and I picked it up, went and brought it home, and watched come in. I watched Highlander 2 first. Well, we watched my sister's movie, Furry Vengeance, first. Then we watched, was it Furry Vengeance we watched, or I could have been a different movie we watched, but I'm sure it was Furry Vengeance. But we watched my sister's movie first, because she was littler. And then we watched Highlander 2, which Highlander 2 was shit. Highlander 2 is one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen. Okay, I was so disappointed. And the sad thing was, I enjoyed Obsessed way more. Obsessed is actually not a bad movie, but I'm just going to say Highlander 2 is shit. So if you ever have that option between Obsessed and Highlander 2 and 3, watch Obsessed, because you're going to enjoy it much, much more. So I put Obsessed in afterwards, and I thought it was going to be, because, it's like about adultery and stuff. And so I thought it was going to be like nudity and stuff. It wasn't. And I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. Idris Elba, who is my second favorite actor, is really good in that movie. Like, he really comes off as this genuine nice guy. Like, he literally, and one thing he has over Michael Douglas and other actors in other movies like this, because mostly, like, this movie, I've said, is a Fatal Attraction ripoff. Only difference is, it's a watered-down version, and, like, they take, and they make people of color in these roles, rather than, like, Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. And, like, which I will say, I do like that they brought in Ali Lautner to play this role, because she comes off genuinely nice. And then she comes off as really nice. And I really like her in this movie. I thought she was really good in the movie. Like, I legit like her in this movie, because you think, like, okay, this is just a genuinely nice person. And then you don't see until the end, like, closer as the movie goes on, she's become more of a psychopath. And it's not just like Glenn Close when I've seen Fatal Attraction. She's a psychopath from the get-go. Like, you could tell there is psychotic stuff about her. There's something not right about her. And even, like, you know, Single White Female, there's something off about her. Or The Roommate. Other movies like this, there's something always off about them. This one, you don't really sense that, you know? And, like, you know, and the movie is, like, you know, of course, Idris Elba, he's such a nice guy. He doesn't even commit adultery with his wife. You know, his wife's Beyonce. And you would think, like, okay, Idris Elba would be downgrading, which I do agree with that. So, basically, all right, like, he's him and his wife, you know, he got a job, and or him and his wife are moving in from houses, and so he basically works at this, like, firm, and so him and Jerry O'Connell's his best friend, and then he gets this new temp and played by Ali Lautner, and she basically is really nice and being really pleasant to him, and his wife one day visits the office and meets her, and she's really nice and everything, and you know, the wife suspects, like, oh, she's a hot white girl, you know, like, you know, she's hot, and he's like, yeah, she's pretty plain, and you know, and then of course he throws off, and at the Christmas party, of course, who's been drinking and stuff, and they've eating burgers and drinking, and one thing leads to another, and you know, of course, he goes to the bathroom, and she follows him in there, and he does not commit adultery at all. He throws her off and says, stop, and then even so much so where he's afraid to be caught by someone at work. And so he basically just like tells her stay there and then wait, and after that person leaves, he's like, no, and then he goes home, goes to sleep, gets up for work the next day, pretends like everything's normal, goes to work, and then she basically apologizes, saying, I was like, you know, we were drunk, and they both just water on the bridge, it's fine. And so then, of course, you think everything's fine, like, okay, alright, maybe she got the message. No, like, at work, after he's getting off work, she gets in the car with him, in lingerie, in like a flasher coat, you know, long trench coat that usually flashers use to flash people. She opens that trench coat up and it's like lingerie. And so basically he's like, you know, he basically said no, and she's like, that she tries to say vulgar stuff, but because PG-13, he slams on his car before she can say that vulgar word, and tells her, get out the car, and she gets out the car. And then, of course, you know, then she starts ruining, as months go by, she starts ruining his life and stuff. And, you know, the typical cliche thing of, like, doing weird stuff to him. But not, like, killing animals and not like that. But mostly just, like, you know, date raping and, you know, basically trying to fake her suicide, you know, stuff like that. Just, you know, basically try to ruin his life psychologically more than mentally, or physically, really. And, you know, but again, it's a PG-13 movie, so, I mean, really, you can't really do horrific stuff like that. And so, I really do like a lot of parts of this, but I think the acting is on point. And I do feel like, though, the movie and trailer advertised Beyonce as a star, and she's on all the posters and everything. In fact, she's probably advertised more in the trailer than Idris Elba. At the time, he was not a big-name actor. And I fell in love with his performance, because I think he plays a genuinely nice guy. Like, I fell in love with all the performances. But I feel like you feel like this is really who he is in real life. And even, I will say this, the movie is not a bad movie. I really enjoy it. Like, I really did enjoy watching it. I mean, I could sit down and watch it right now. I watched it earlier, and I'm just like, it's not a bad movie at all. Like, I really like this movie. And so basically, I really do enjoy this movie. And so I do think that, you know, there are some flaws to this movie. Like, one thing I do think of it is, although here's a fun story. The director on YouTube, the director said that he watched girl fights on YouTube to figure out the final fight scene. And I always thought that was fascinating. But, like, there is some issues with the movie. Like, one, alright, so she goes and has, he doesn't do nothing wrong. And so why didn't you just take wife, bro? Like, literally. I understand, after at home, he gets drunk. He goes home and then gets back up and goes to work and she says water under the bridge. I understand, then I wouldn't say nothing. I guarantee you, most people wouldn't say nothing if that was the case. But then when she gets in your car in lingerie and then starts talking dirty to you and stuff, and you tell her to get out of your car, I honestly would go right then and there. I would go back in there and tell Human Resources and how I'd tell my wife and get, you know, fire her and all that stuff. Instead, he goes home, doesn't say nothing. The next day, he goes to Human Resources, but she quit. And then that's when she starts plotting against him. And I'm just like, why wouldn't you go ahead and just tell him, even at Human Resources, and say, look, I understand he was trying to be this nice guy and not try to work his family and try to keep everything. you know, doesn't want to involve like a big bubble to rub, but like, dude, you're just hiding secrets from your wife, and this kind of backfires on later in the movie, and I'm like, yeah, you kind of deserved it because you didn't come forward. I mean, I always understand that in movies when people try to hide secrets, you know, I understand, which I talked to someone about that earlier, and they're like, then there'd be no movie. I'm like, but I understand, but it's like, come on, even secrets. I mean, it's just like the cheapest thing in a movie is always secrets, because secrets help. You know why they put secrets in movies? Because it expands the plot. That's the whole reason why. And I really do. I do think that, you know, Beyonce. I wish if she was like, she's a star. She's in all the marketing. I wish they'd have put her in more scenes than she is. And I do think that Ali Lautner plays it great for her role in the movie. I do also think that Idris Elba is fantastic in this movie. I do feel like because they cast Beyonce, I feel like if I would, I don't know if this is true or not, but I would believe if there is, that if the third act of the movie, they took Idris Elba out the third act and then they put Beyonce in there because, you know, it's Beyonce, I would believe that, because I feel like you could tell he would have been in the third act of the movie, but because they had a big name like Beyonce in the movie, they're like, oh, we'll take him out, put it and replace it, you know. And because it's really toned down, like it's a PG-13 toned down, but I really like this movie. They don't make movies like this as they used to. Nowadays, they make it mostly like on Lifetime and stuff like that, and it's always the same cliche. But if I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid B-.